the 0 to 1 thing. It's the mountain climbing thing. You're not going to find your path to the top of the mountain in the first go around. Sometimes you go up there, you get stuck, and you come back down. And the difference between all the successful people and the ones who are not is the ones who are successful want it so badly they're willing to go back and start over again and again, whether in their career or in their relationships or in anything else.
The more seriously you take yourself, the unhappier you're going to be. Have you learned how to take yourself less seriously?
Well, fame doesn't help on that one, because that is one of the traps of fame. People are always talking about you. They have a certain view of you, and you start believing that, and then you take yourself seriously, and then that limits your own actions. You can't look like a fool anymore. You can't do new things anymore. Tomorrow I announce I'm a breakdancer, right? That's going to be met with a lot of scorn and ridicule. But what if I want to be a breakdancer?
I'd back you if you want to make that pivot.
Yeah, the truth is, if I want to be a breakdancer, I'd be breakdancing. But like I'm starting a new company, 0 to 1 again, from scratch. Let's do it, one more time. And not just going and raising a big VC fund or retiring or what have you. But that's because I want to build the product. I want to see it exist. So I think that you constantly just have to force yourself. You have to remind yourself. Look, deep down, you're still the same Chris you were when you were 9 years old. Deep down, you're still a kid. You're still curious about the world. You still have a lot of the same predilections and desires and wants. You've got a nice veneer on it. But one of the nice things when you have kids is you realize how much closer they are to you in personality and knowledge and know-how. Like I look at my son who's, he's 8, and I just noticed wow, he's probably has 60 to 80% of my knowledge and development wisdom, and he has a lot more freedom, and he has a lot more spontaneity. In some ways he's smarter, and there's not a big gap here left to close. This kid's going to be done very soon, caught up to me. And so to the extent that I think I know better, or that I'm somewhere, or that I'm someone, it's just an illusion. It's just a belief.
What's the lineage between that and taking yourself too seriously?
I shouldn't take myself too seriously because there's nothing here to take that seriously. And if I take myself too seriously, then I'm going to get trapped. I'm going to circumscribe myself again into a limited set of behaviors and outcomes that keep me from being free, keep me from being spontaneous, keep me from being happy. So it just goes back to the, don't think about yourself too much.
There's a special type of pain in realizing that the advice that you need to hear right now is something that almost always you learned a long time ago, and that you're basically sort of the same person you were as you were 9. A lot of the time people ask questions like, what advice do you wish that you would give yourself 10 years ago?
Right.
People ask themselves that question. Almost invariably, the advice that you would give yourself 10 years ago is still the advice that you need to hear today.
Absolutely. That's why I did that exercise of thinking back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. What advice would I give myself? For me, it's just be less emotional. Don't take everything so seriously. Do the same things, but do them without all the emotional turbulence. And so that's the advice I'm giving myself going forward.
Yeah. It's funny how we need that distance to be able to be a little bit more objective, to have a little bit more perspective. And it's almost a little bit of a trick, right? Because typically when you do that, you say, what would you tell a friend that was going through this?
Right.
And then you try and turn the advice to the friend around onto yourself. But you always think, well, I'm not the friend. You go, okay, you 10 years ago, there's enough distance in there. And you go, oh, I actually am still that person. There's just a single line between that and me.
And related to this story is, I think, understanding is way more important than discipline. Now, Jocko would have a fit, but on physical things, discipline is important. If I want to build a good body, I got to work out on a regular basis. But on mental things, I think understanding is way more important. Once you see the truth of something, you cannot unsee it. All of us have had experiences where we've seen a behavior in a person, and then it just changes what we think about that person. We no longer want to be friends with them, or we deeply respect them if it was, really good behavior that maybe was observed unintentionally. So when we really do see something clearly, it changes our behavior immediately. And that is far more efficient than trying to change your behavior through repetition.
Could you give me an example?
If you were, let's say that, you have a friend and then that person turns out to be a thief. You see that person stealing something. You're done with them. If you are, the smoking lung cancer example is a good one, right? Someone close to you, or anytime someone close to you dies, or you even hear about someone dying. You hear about someone dying, what's the first thing you do? The first thing, assuming that you weren't that close to them, obviously your closeness is different, but if you weren't that close to them, but you hear about someone in your extended social circle dying, you immediately start trying to distinguish yourself from them. You're like, oh, well, how old was this person? Did they were they a smoker? Did they have an issue? Do I have that issue? Right? You immediately start comparing. And what you're doing there is you're sort of just trying to see if there's an overlap here. But if you see the truth in something, if you're like, oh my God, this person was the same age as me and they died, and that's starting to happen at my age where I'm starting to hear about, extended circle people, just reminds you time is really short. There's a truth there. There's a truth there that you cannot...
Reaction of distancing yourself.
There's a truth there that you cannot unsee. For example, I think, were you into bodybuilding or something back when? I don't know.
Just like bro lifting stuff.
Okay, bro lifting
less
stuff.
Of a skinny bitch, yeah.
Right, but there probably was a point where you were being really aggro in the gym and you injured yourself.
Many times.
Right, and each one of those was a deep understanding of don't go beyond this point, right? There was a truth there. So again, when you see these things in such a way that you can't unsee them, that changes your behavior instantly. And I would argue that introspection to find those truths is actually very useful.
Is that a justification for more experimentation, exploration, experience in life, sort of trying to find serendipity, because all of these experiences are going to teach you a inescapable lesson?
You're going to do what you're going to do. I mean, your level of exploration, I think, is sort of up to you. But life is always throwing truth back at you. It's about whether you choose to see it, whether you choose to acknowledge it, even if it's painful. Truth is often painful, right? If it wasn't, we'd all be seeing truth all the time. Reality is always reflecting truth. That's all it is.
Why would you not have accessed it already?
Exactly. All the philosophy that's out there, for example, it's almost trite. Like most people, they look at philosophy like until they discover it for themselves. Because wisdom is the set of things that cannot be transmitted. If they could be transmitted, we'd read the same 5 philosophy books and we'd all be done, we'd all be wise. You have to learn it for yourself. It has to be rediscovered for yourself in your own context. You have to have specific experiences that then allow you to generalize and see the truth in those things in such a way that you're not going to unsee them. But each person is going to see them in a different way. I can tell you that Socrates' story, and it's not going to resonate until there's something that other people desire that you realize you yourself don't want. And the moment that happens, then you'll see the truth in the general statement.
I want to just read you a 2-minute essay that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. It's called Unteachable Lessons.
Okay.
I've been thinking about a special category of lesson, one which you cannot discover without experiencing it firsthand. There is a certain subset of advice that for some reason we all refuse to learn through instruction. These are unteachable lessons. No matter how arduous or costly or effortful it is going to be for us to find out ourselves, we prefer to disregard the mountains of warnings from our elders, songs, literature, historical catastrophes, public scandals, and instead think some version of, yeah, that might be true for them, but not for me. We decide to learn the hard lessons the hard way, over and over again. Unfortunately, they all seem to be the big things, too. It's never new insights about how to put up level shelves or charmingly introduce yourself at a cocktail party. Instead, we spend most of our lives learning firsthand the most important lessons that the previous generations already warned us about. Things like, money won't make you happy, fame won't fix your self-worth, you don't love that pretty girl, she's just hot and difficult to get. Nothing is as important as you think it is when you're thinking about it. You will regret working too much. Worrying is not improving your performance. All your fears are a waste of time. You should see your parents more. You'll be fine after the breakup and will be grateful that you did it. It's perfectly okay to cut toxic people out of your life. And even reading this list back, I'm rolling my eyes at how fucking trite it is. These are all basic bitch, obvious insights that everybody has heard before. But if they're so basic, why does everyone so reliably fall prey to them throughout our lives? And if they're so obvious, why do people who have recently become famous or wealthy or lost a parent or gone through a breakup start to proclaim these facts with the renewed grandiose ceremony of someone who's just gone through religious revelation? It's also a very contentious list of points to say on the internet. If you interview a billionaire who says that all of his money didn't make him happy, or a movie star who said that her fame felt like a prison, the internet will tear them apart for being ungrateful and out of touch. So not only do we refuse to learn these lessons, we even refuse to hear the message from those warning us about them. And even more than that, I think for every one of these, if I consider a bit deeper, I can recall a time, including right now, where I convinced myself that I am the exception to the rule, that my particular mental makeup or life situation or historical wounds or dreams for the future render me immune to these lessons being applicable. No, my inner landscape would be salved by skirting around the most well-known wisdom of the ages. No, I can thread this needle properly. Watch me dance through the minefield and avoid all of the tripwires that everyone else kicks. And then you kick one. And you share a knowing look, the kind that can only occur between two people who've been hurt in the exact same way, and a voice in the back of your mind will say, I told you so. That's unteachable lesson.
It's a good essay. I think one of the reasons why these lessons are unteachable is because they're too broad. They have to be applied in context. A number of the ones that you laid out contradict each other, like spend more time with your parents and, don't work so hard. But, at the same time, you do want to be successful, right? I think a lot of these lessons come from down on high, from, as you said, like the famous movie star or the billionaire saying, "Oh, you don't need money to be happy." It's like, well, okay, then give it up, bitch, right? In reality, I think many of these contradict each other. And it's like if you went to school and you just studied philosophy for 4 years, you would not know how to live life because you wouldn't know which philosophical doctrine to apply in which circumstance. You have to actually live life, go through all of the issues to figure out what it is that you want, what's the context in which some of these things apply and some of them don't. Yes, you want to visit your parents more often, but you don't want to live with your parents and you don't want to necessarily see them every day or every weekend, depending on the parent. You might not get along with one of them. So I think it is highly contextual. That said, I would argue that once you figure it out for yourself, you can kind of carve these variations on these maxims that apply to you. And then you'll have a specific experience that helps you remember it and actually execute on it. And you can also phrase it in a way where it's not trite anymore. So like
it's personal.
Yeah. So a lot of my maxims and notes to self are carved in a way that they're modernized. They're saying something true, which might be trite if I didn't say it in a new way or in an interesting way that is more relevant to me today.
There was a Nobel Prize winner who said something to the effect of, everything worth saying may have been said before, but given that nobody was listening, it must be said again.
Yeah, it has to be said again, has to be recontextualized for the modern age. Things do change. Technology changes things. Culture changes. People change.
On that, I've heard you say, you talk about the difference between seeming wise and being wise, that you tried to appear smart as a kid by sort of
still do
rote memorization, masquerading as insight and wisdom. And I certainly feel that, a lot of the show for me, I think was and still is a redemption arc from this, decade of my life where I completely suppressed any intellectual curiosity. It's like, okay, I'll be a professional party boy for 10 years, stand on the front door of a nightclub and give out VIP wristbands and have access to all of the pretty girls or, the cool parties or whatever it might be.
Seems like it worked out okay.
It did in some ways. But I mean,
and
it's
you
not
had fun.
It was, look, it was a good way to spend my 20s, but to sort of come back above, put your head above water, 2 degrees, one of which was a master's, and then this just shut down any of that learn. I mean, I did that while I was at uni. While I was at uni, I was running the events. So it was actually a decade and a half. And I think there was a big redemption arc within this show, and I constantly have to kind of wipe the slime off me of this sense that I need to prove myself. And so much of it's why it really resonates with me. When you're memorizing things, it indicates that you don't understand them, or that sort of, rote memorization and regurgitation masquerading as wisdom, because people use fluency as a proxy for truthfulness and insight. They use the complexity of your language and your communication.
There's a lot of jargon out there. I think it's the mark of a charlatan to explain a simple thing in a complex way. And so when you see people using very complicated language to explain simple things, they're either trying to impress you and obfuscate, or they don't understand it themselves.
But there's an allure in that, though. This was one of the things I had to do when I went to therapy. It's kind of an interesting, I don't think I've talked about this before. I needed to turn off podcast Chris when I stepped into therapy, because most of the time that I spend one-on-one in a deep conversation that's undistracted throughout the week, I'd trained myself over, when I started doing it, 700 episodes, now 900 and whatever. And I knew what I could do to say to this therapist to just sort of veer off a little and create some nice story, put a bow on it, push it across the table and watch her eyes light up a little bit, like a little grin or a self-deprecating joke or whatever. I'm like, you're not here. You're performing. You're doing this. You're doing the Chris Williamson thing with the sort of jazz hands.
So I have my own version.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, so you have podcast Chris.
Uh-huh.
I have podcast guest Naval.
Well,
right?
Precisely.
So very often